Lieutenant Raven Drake stood at the helm of her patrol vessel, the Stellar Hawk watching ribbons of blue light streak past the view screen. The Meridian Nebula stretched before her like a cosmic tapestry, its swirling gases painting the void in shades of azure and violet. 6 months of monotonous patrol duty had left her craving something, anything, to break the routine. Lieutenant, we're picking up an anomalous energy signature, reported Navigator Finn Blackwood, his fingers dancing across the holographic display. It's unlike anything in our database. Raven leaned forward, her dark eyes narrowing. Origins. Sector 7 near the asteroid belt, the signature, it's fluctuating almost like it's alive. Protocol dictated that unknown signatures should be reported to Central Command for analysis, but something about this reading stirred Raven's curiosity. Plot and intercept course, Finn, let's investigate. Ma'am, Finn's expression wavered between concern and excitement. Regulations state. I know what regulations state, Raven interrupted, a slight smile playing at her lips. But we're the only patrol within 3 light years. By the time Command responds, whatever's out there could be gone. The Stellar Hawk banked smoothly, its quantum engines humming as they approached the source. As they drew closer, the ship's sensors revealed more details, fragments of exotic metal, traces of an unknown element, and faint life signs. It's a ship, announced Security Officer Jade Santos, her cybernetic eye whirring as it processed the data. Or what's left of one. Design doesn't match any known configurations. Raven felt her pulse quicken. First contact scenarios were rare these days, with most spacefaring species already catalogued and diplomatic channels established. Life support status. Failing, Jade replied grimly. Whatever's in there won't survive another hour without intervention. The decision shouldn't have been difficult. Standing orders regarding unknown alien entities were clear. Observe, report, and under no circumstances engage without authorization. Too many colonial outposts had been lost to hostile first contacts. But Raven hadn't joined the Stellar Guard to watch others die. Prep the medical bay, she ordered, already moving toward the airlock. Jade, you're with me. Finn, maintain position and be ready for emergency extraction. The space between ships was silent save for the sound of their magnetic boots connecting with the damaged vessel's hull. Its surface was covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Jade's scanner detected an entry point, a tier in the hull large enough for them to slip through. Inside, emergency lighting cast everything in an eerie purple glow. The architecture was organic, with corridors that curved and twisted like arteries. They found the pilot's chamber at the heart of the ship. Raven's breath caught in her throat. The being before them was humanoid in basic form but composed of living crystal. Its transparent skin revealed internal structures that pulsed with light, currently dim and faltering. Fractures ran through its body, leaking a luminescent fluid. Lieutenant, Jade warned, raising her pulse rifle. We should withdraw and call for containment teams. But the crystalline being's eyes opened, revealing swirling galaxies within them and locked onto Raven's. A voice echoed in her mind, not in words but in emotions and images, pain, fear, and a desperate plea for help. Stand down, Raven ordered, removing her helmet despite Jade's protest. The air was thin but breathable. She approached the injured alien slowly, hands raised to show she meant no harm. The being attempted to move and more cracks appeared across its surface. Danger, the emotional message warned, others coming must hide. We need to get it to medical, Raven decided. Help me stabilize. A blast of energy struck the hull, rocking the entire ship. Jade's combat systems immediately activated, multiple vessels dropping out of quantum space. Recognition codes identify them as hegemony warships. The hegemony, a militant faction of humanity that opposed all alien contact. Of course they'd been monitoring this sector. Their solution to first contact was always the same: elimination. The crystalline being's light flickered desperately. End coming, go save yourself. Raven had seen that look before, in the eyes of countless soldiers ready to sacrifice themselves for others. She wouldn't let it happen again. Jade, help me get it up. Finn, she activated her comm, prepare for emergency quantum jump. We're bringing company. This could start a war, Jade warned even as she moved to assist. Maybe, Raven agreed, supporting the alien's crystalline form as gently as possible. Or maybe it ends one before it begins. The being, which would later introduce itself as Sylph, trembled beneath their touch. Its surface temperature dropped rapidly, a defense mechanism that would have frozen unprotected hands. But Raven's powered armor compensated and she maintained her grip. Together, they half-carried, half-dragged Sylph through the twisting corridors as the ship shuddered under enemy fire. Raven's mind filled with fragments of Sylph's memories. A mission of peace, a discovery that could change everything, and betrayal from within their own kind. They reached the airlock just as the first hegemony boarding pod attached to the far side of the vessel. Jade laid down covering fire at the advancing shadows, while Raven activated their emergency return line. "Hold on," she told Sylph as the magnetic grapple pulled them across the void toward the stellar hawk. The crystalline being's light pulsed in response, gratitude mixed with fear. They crashed into their own airlock as Finn executed the quantum jump. The hegemony ships vanished in a blur of streaking stars, their pursuit cut off by the stellar hawk's superior drives. In the medical bay, as the ship's AI struggled to understand Sylph's unique physiology, Raven faced her crew. "I know what I did goes against everything in the manual. Anyone who wants to file a formal protest when we reach port has that right." Finn and Jade exchanged looks. It was Jade who spoke first. "With all due respect, Lieutenant, the manual never covered what to do when you find a living crystal being hunted by human supremacists." "Besides," Finn added with a grin, "this beats patrol duty." Raven turned back to their patient. Sylph's light had stabilized and the worst fractures were already healing. The being's galaxy eyes met hers again, and this time the emotional message was clear: trust given freely is the rarest gift in the universe. She placed her hand against the cool crystalline surface. "Rest now, you're safe." But as the stellar hawk raced through quantum space, Raven knew this was just the beginning. She had chosen to protect an alien she barely understood, violating orders and possibly starting an interstellar incident in the process. The consequences would come soon enough. For now, watching the gentle pulse of light within their mysterious passenger, she knew she'd made the right choice. Sometimes the most important orders were the ones that came from conscience rather than command. In the quiet of space, as her crew prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead, Lieutenant Raven Drake allowed herself a small smile. Perhaps this was what she'd been waiting for all along, a chance to prove that humanity's future lay not in fear of the unknown, but in the courage to embrace it. 3 days into their quantum flight, Lieutenant Raven Drake woke to an unusual sensation, a gentle tingling at the base of her skull, like wind chimes in her mind. She found herself walking to the medical bay before she was fully conscious of making the decision. Sylph floated in the zero-gravity chamber they'd modified for their guest's recovery. The crystalline being's fractures had mostly healed, leaving faint lines like frozen lightning across their translucent surface. As Raven approached, Sylph's internal light brightened in recognition. "Gratitude connection warnings." The emotional messages were stronger now, more distinct. Raven placed her hand against the chamber's surface. "You're trying to tell me something important, aren't you?" "Lieutenant," Finn's voice came through the intercom. "We've got a situation on the bridge." In the command center, Finn's usual easy smile was replaced with concern as he gestured to the quantum space readings. "We're being followed. They're masking their signature well, but there's definitely someone trailing us." "Hegemony?" Raven asked, though something told her it wasn't. Jade shook her head, her cybernetic eye processing the data. "Pattern doesn't match. This is different, more advanced." "Hunters," came Sylph's distant whisper in Raven's mind. "My kind, not friends." "How long until we reach the Valyrian outpost?" Raven asked, already formulating contingencies. 18 hours, Finn replied. "But Lieutenant, there's something else. The quantum wake behind us, it's degrading much faster than it should, like something's eating away at spacetime itself." Raven felt Sylph's anxiety spike through their growing connection. Images flashed through her mind. Crystalline ships like abstract sculptures, weapons that didn't just destroy matter but erased it from existence, and a schism among Sylph's people that threatened to tear reality apart. "Change course," she ordered. "Plot a route to the Nomads Crossing trading station instead." "That's neutral territory," Jade noted, "and a haven for anyone looking to disappear." "Exactly. We need answers before we lead trouble to any official outposts." The next 12 hours were tense. Raven split her time between the bridge and medical bay, piecing together Sylph's story through their strengthening telepathic bond. The crystalline beings, who called themselves the Resonance, were ancient, having achieved space travel when humans were still mastering fire. They had watched humanity's development from afar, debating whether to make contact. But a discovery changed everything. The resonance found they could share more than just thoughts, they could share consciousness itself, creating a collective understanding that transcended species barriers. Some saw this as a path to universal peace. Others recognized it as the ultimate weapon. Choice self-communicated their light pulsing with urgency, always must be choice. Cannot force connection, destroys both. The faction hunting you, Raven pieced together, they want to force this connection on other species. Yes would destroy individuality, make slaves must prevent. A proximity alert blared. 3 ships had dropped out of quantum space directly ahead of them, crystalline vessels that seemed to bend light around their impossible geometries. They're hailing us, Finn reported. The viewscreen activated, revealing a resonant whose internal light burned a deep crimson. Its voice came not through the speakers but directly into their minds, causing everyone on the bridge to wince. Return the betrayer to face judgment, humans. This matter does not concern your kind. Raven stepped forward, her head pounding but her voice steady. We're in neutral space. Any aggressive action here violates multiple treaties. Treaties mean nothing compared to the destiny of all conscious life. Final warning, surrender the betrayer. Sylph's presence surged in Raven's mind. Trust given must be trust returned. Let me speak to them. No, Raven said aloud, surprising herself with her vehemence. I didn't save you just to hand you over to execution. Not execution intended. Worse, would use me to create forced link. Break down barriers between all minds, no more privacy, no more self. The enemy ships began powering up weapons that distorted the very space around them. Jade's tactical display showed their conventional shields would be useless against such attacks. But Raven had noticed something during her time with Sylph, the way their crystalline form responded to emotions, how it amplified and reflected energy. An idea formed. Finn, divert all power to the quantum drive. Jade, help me get Sylph to the engine room. What are you planning? Jade asked as they rushed through the corridors. Something incredibly stupid, Raven admitted. But if I'm right about how Sylph's people manipulate energy. In the engine room, they carefully moved Sylph next to the quantum core. The crystalline being understood the plan through their connection and began to resonate with the core's frequency. Trust flows both ways, Sylph communicated. What you risk for me, I risk for you. The enemy ships fired. Reality began to tear apart around the stellar hawk. But at that exact moment, Sylph's crystalline form lit up like a newborn star. They absorbed the quantum core's energy and redirected it, not just powering their jump but bending spacetime in ways human technology never could. The stellar hawk didn't just escape, it danced through dimensions, leaving their pursuers firing at echoes while the real ship slipped between the folds of spacetime. When they emerged, they were light years from their previous position. Everyone on board was nauseated from the impossible jump, but alive. Raven found she could barely stand, the mental connection with Sylph having taken its toll. But as she looked at their savior, now glowing with renewed strength, she saw something that made her breath catch, a tiny crystalline formation on her own hand, refracting light like a prism. Sylph's light pulsed with concern and wonder. Connection grows, change is happening, did not intend this but cannot undo, will understand if trust broken. But Raven watched the play of light through the crystal with fascination rather than fear. Trust isn't just about safety, she said. It's about accepting change even when it's frightening. Jade helped her up, eyeing the crystalline formation with professional worry. Orders, Lieutenant. Raven looked at her small crew, human and alien alike, and managed a tired smile. Get us to Nomad's Crossing. We need to find some answers before either of our peoples catch up with us. As they set their new course, Raven felt Sylph's consciousness brush against hers, sharing not just thoughts but understanding. The change spreading through her body should have terrified her. Instead, she felt a growing certainty that they were on the edge of something momentous, a transformation that could reshape the galaxy not through force but through freely chosen connection. The hard part would be convincing everyone else to trust in possibility rather than fear. Nomad's Crossing hung in space like a twisted metal flower, its petals formed from salvaged ship hulls and ancient space station segments. To outlaws and refugees, it was sanctuary. To merchants, a free port. To Raven Drake, it was her last hope for answers. The crystalline formations had spread from her hand to her forearm, catching light in hypnotic patterns. Through their deepening connection, Sylph had helped her learn to control the radiance that occasionally shimmered beneath her skin, but they couldn't stop the transformation itself. Trading post-control, this is Stellar Hawk requesting emergency docking, Finn transmitted as they approached. We have credits and cargo to trade. The response came in multiple languages before settling on standard. Stellar Hawk, transmit cargo manifest and prepare for inspection. Jade, who had been monitoring their pursuit, spoke up. Lieutenant, we've got company coming in, multiple ships, both human and crystalline signatures. How long? 3 hours, maybe less. Raven felt Sylph's anxiety mirror her own. They needed allies, resources, and most importantly, information. The station might have all three if they could find them in time. The inspection was brief, their story simple: independent traders with mechanical troubles. It wasn't even a lie, the quantum jump had strained their systems beyond safe limits. They docked in one of the lower bays, away from the main traffic. Finn, see what you can do about repairs, Raven ordered. Jade, find us supplies, I'll take Sylph and… You'll do nothing without backup, interrupted a new voice. They turned to find a woman leaning against their airlock. Her dark skin was marked with bioluminescent tattoos and a pulse rifle hung casually at her side. Station security noticed your quantum wake distortions, very distinctive, very illegal. Raven's hand moved toward her sidearm, but the stranger raised her empty palm. Relax, if I were hunting you we wouldn't be talking. Name's Torch, I'm a problem solver. Truth in words, Sylph communicated, but many layers. What kind of problems do you solve? Raven asked cautiously. Torch's tattoos pulsed faintly as she smiled. The kind you have, hegemony hunting you from one side, resonant purists from the other, and something happening to your own biology that shouldn't be possible. Did I miss anything? Before Raven could respond, another figure emerged from the shadows, a tall man with silver-threaded hair and eyes that seemed to see too much. You missed me, as usual, Torch. This is Dr. Voss, Torch explained. Former xenobiologist for the hegemony, current pain in my ass, and possibly your best chance at understanding what's happening to you. Dr. Voss approached slowly, his eyes fixed on Raven's crystalline arm. Remarkable, true cross-species adaptation without genetic engineering. The hegemony said it was impossible, one of many things they were wrong about. Knowledge, Sylph projected, deep knowledge, but wounds too, betrayal. You're both taking a risk approaching us openly, Raven noted. Why? Because in 3 hours this station will be a battlefield unless we act, Torch said bluntly. The hegemony fleet approaching from the outer system doesn't care about collateral damage. And your crystalline friends, they'll tear reality apart to get what they want. I have a lab, Dr. Voss added. Hidden, shielded. We might be able to understand this transformation process, maybe even use it to prove that peaceful cooperation between species is possible. Jade, who had been quietly scanning both newcomers, spoke up. They're clean of obvious surveillance tech, Lieutenant, but we're running out of time for other options. Raven felt the weight of command settling on her shoulders. Her crew had followed her this far on trust. Now she was asking them to trust strangers based on little more than intuition and Sylph's empathic readings. Show us, she decided. They moved through the station's back corridors, avoiding the main thoroughfares. Torch led with the confidence of someone who knew every shortcut and blind spot. Dr. Voss explained as they walked. The resonants aren't just a different species, they're a different form of life entirely. Energy and matter intertwined in ways we're only beginning to understand. What's happening to you shouldn't be possible, but it proves what some of us have argued for years. Consciousness itself is more fundamental than biology. Less theory, more practical help, Torch suggested as she bypassed a security checkpoint. Like how to keep her from turning completely crystalline before we figure this out. Not complete transformation, Sylph assured Raven. Balance possible, unity without loss of self. They reached Dr. Voss's lab, a sprawling space filled with exotic equipment and specimens. But what caught Raven's attention was the central display showing both human and resonant DNA structures, slowly morphing into something new. You've seen this before, she realized. Observed it, studied it, was ordered to weaponize it, Dr. Voss admitted. When I refused, the hegemony tried to eliminate both me and my research. Torch got me out. For a reasonable fee, Torch added with a wink. A distant explosion rocked the station. Jade's combat systems came online instantly. They're here, both fleets ahead of schedule. Through the lab's viewports, they watched crystalline ships emerge from quantum space, their impossible geometries disrupting the fabric of reality. From the opposite direction came the brutal efficiency of hegemony warships, their weapons already charging. "We need more time," Dr. Voss said, already working at his console. "The data from your transformation could prove that cooperation isn't just possible, it's the next step in evolution for both species." Raven looked at her crystalline arm, then at Sylph, whose light pulsed with determination. "Time isn't what we need," she said slowly. "We need to show them." "Dangerous," Sylph warned, "what you consider. Can you help me project, not just emotions but this connection we share, let them feel what's possible?" "Yes, but strain could shatter both." Torch checked her weapons. "Whatever you're planning, do it fast. Those fleets are about to tear this station apart." Dr. Voss's eyes widened. "You want to attempt forced empathic projection, the energy required." "Not forced," Raven corrected. "Offered, there's a difference." She turned to her crew. "Finn, Jade, get back to the ship. Be ready for emergency evacuation." "Not a chance," Jade replied. "We started this together." Finn nodded. "All the way, Lieutenant." Raven felt their loyalty like a physical force strengthening her resolve. She looked at their new allies, Torch with her ready weapons and hidden depths, Dr. Voss with his burned bridges and desperate hope for redemption. "Help me reach them," she said, "all of them." As the first shots were fired between the approaching fleets, they began their work. Dr. Voss's equipment amplified the quantum resonance between Raven and Sylph. Torch's knowledge of the station's systems let them broadcast on all frequencies. And through it all, Raven's crew stood guard, buying them the precious minutes they needed. The transformation spread further up her arm, crystal lattices forming and dissolving as she learned to channel the energy. But this time she embraced it. Through her link with Sylph, she reached out to both fleets, not with words but with truth. The memory of choosing to save Sylph. The fear and wonder of first connection. The realization that difference could become strength. The simple power of freely given trust. As her consciousness expanded, carried on waves of crystalline energy, she felt the minds of others touching hers. Human, resonant, each unique yet all connected in that moment of shared understanding. The station shuddered around them, reality itself wavering as two forms of technology and consciousness collided. But in that chaos, something new was being born. They just had to survive long enough to let it grow. In the aftermath of Raven's consciousness projection, Nomad's crossing had fallen eerily silent. Both fleets hung motionless in space, their crews struggling to process the shared experience of connection. The station's medical bay was crowded with those affected by the resonance wave, humans experiencing their first telepathic contact, resonance overwhelmed by the intensity of human emotions. Raven herself lay in Dr. Voss's lab, her entire right side now transformed into living crystal. Sylph hadn't left her side, their lights pulsing in synchronized patterns. "Remarkable," Dr. Voss muttered, reviewing his readings. "The crystalline structure isn't replacing your human tissue, it's integrating with it, creating something entirely new." Torch paced nearby, her bioluminescent tattoos flickering anxiously. "That's fascinating, Doc, but we've got bigger problems. Both fleets are recovering from the shock. When they do, they'll either retreat or hit us twice as hard." "They felt it," Raven whispered, her voice carrying harmonic undertones. "They know the truth now." "Truth not always enough," Sylph cautioned, fear still strong. Jade entered the lab, her cybernetic eye scanning Raven's vital signs. "Lieutenant, we're receiving transmissions from both sides. They're requesting diplomatic contact." "Of course they are," Torch said with a harsh laugh. "Nothing like a forced telepathic encounter to get people talking." "Not forced," Dr. Voss corrected, his eyes never leaving his instruments. "That's what makes this so extraordinary. The resonance only worked because Raven and Sylph offered connection freely. It created a template, a prototype for voluntary consciousness sharing between species." Finn arrived with more news. "The station's council is convening an emergency session. They're calling representatives from both fleets. They want you both there." Raven tried to sit up, Crystal chiming faintly with the movement. "Help me up, we need to." "You need to rest," Dr. Voss interrupted. "The transformation is accelerating. Without understanding the process fully, any further stress could." "He speaks truth," Sylph confirmed, "but time's short, others come." What others? Torch demanded. As if in answer, new ships began emerging from quantum space, vessels of both human and resonant design, but moving in perfect coordination. Leading them was a massive crystalline dreadnought that seemed to bend light itself around its form. The Fusion Collective, Dr. Voss breathed. I thought they were a myth, humans and resonants who have already achieved permanent synthesis. Through her connection with Sylph, Raven felt the approaching minds, harmonious yet distinct, each consciousness preserved within a greater unity. But she also sensed their purpose, to contain what she and Sylph had started, to control the spread of cross-species transformation. They're afraid, she realized, not of the change itself but of losing control of it, if people can achieve synthesis naturally. Then no one needs their guidance, Torch finished, or their authority. The lab's communications system activated, projecting a figure that was neither fully human nor purely resonant. Its voice resonated on multiple frequencies simultaneously. Lieutenant Drake, Sylph of the Fifth Resonance, your unauthorized experiment risks catastrophic breakdown of the natural order. Surrender yourselves for integration into the collective. We will ensure proper progression of consciousness merger. Raven felt Sylph's defiance merge with her own. There is no proper progression. Connection can't be controlled or regulated. It has to grow naturally through trust and choice. Your perception is limited, the figure stated. We have guided consciousness evolution for centuries. Without structure, without oversight, the merging of species leads only to chaos. They lie, Sylph projected. Fear chaos because cannot control. True harmony comes from freedom. Dr. Voss's instruments began registering massive energy fluctuations. The collective ships were powering up weapons designed to forcibly separate fused consciousnesses. Lieutenant Jade reported, the hegemony and resonant fleets, they're moving to defensive positions. Around us. Torch checked her readings and smiled. Would you look at that, nothing brings old enemies together like a common threat. Through the quantum resonance now flowing through her crystalline form, Raven touched the minds of those fleet crews. They had tasted true connection, freely given and received. They wouldn't let it be regulated or controlled. But the collective ships were closing in, their weapons capable of tearing consciousness itself apart. And Raven could feel the transformation accelerating within her, crystal and flesh seeking a balance that had never existed before. They needed a solution that would prove, once and for all, that forced unity was no unity at all. As her human and crystalline aspects resonated together, Raven had an idea, dangerous, possibly suicidal, but potentially revolutionary. Dr. Voss, she called, your research on consciousness transmission. Could it be broadcast through quantum space itself? The scientist's eyes widened. Theoretically, yes, but the energy requirements. We have 2 fleets worth of quantum drives. And a station full of power relays, Torch added, catching on. Dangerous, Sylph warned, but necessary will help. Raven looked at her crew, human and alien, soldiers and scientists, all choosing to stand together. The transformation had spread to her chest now, crystal and flesh creating something new with each heartbeat. Send word to both fleets, she ordered. We're going to show the collective what real unity looks like. As they began their preparations, Raven felt the resonance building between all forms of consciousness present, human, resonant, and everything in between. The collective had tried to control evolution itself. But evolution, like trust, couldn't be forced. It had to be chosen again and again by those brave enough to reach across the void between species and take someone else's hand. The real question was, could they prove it before the collective tore them all apart? The space around Nomad's crossing blazed with energy as 3 fleets faced each other in an unprecedented standoff. The collective's ships formed a perfect geometric pattern, their weapons targeting not just Raven and Sylph, but any vessel showing signs of consciousness resonance. Inside Dr. Voss's lab, now converted into an improvised broadcast center, final preparations were underway. Raven's transformation had stabilized at a perfect balance, her body an equal fusion of flesh and living crystal, each part strengthening the other. Power relays from both fleets are synchronized, Finn reported from his makeshift console. They've linked their quantum drives to the station's grid. Whatever we're doing, we can do it big. Torch finished connecting the last of her modified transmission arrays. Better work, the collective's getting impatient. Outside, the massive crystalline dreadnought was charging its consciousness-severing weapons. Their time was running out. Ready, Sylph communicated, their light perfectly matched to the crystalline patterns in Raven's skin, but path dangerous, may lose self. No, Raven said with quiet certainty, we'll anchor each other like always. Dr. Voss made final adjustments to his equipment. The quantum resonance field is stable. But Lieutenant, you should know this level of consciousness broadcast, it's never been attempted. The energy involved could burn out your neural pathways. Better burnt out than controlled, Torch commented, but her worried glance at Raven betrayed her concern. Jade, ever practical, checked her combat systems one last time. Collective ships are in optimal position for broadcast reception. They've surrounded us exactly as predicted. Of course they did, Raven smiled. They think they're containing us. They don't realize they're just giving us a better broadcast array. The lab's communications system crackled with the collective's final warning. This is your last opportunity for authorized integration. Resist, and we will separate your consciousness by force. Raven stood, crystal chiming with harmonics as she moved. She felt the minds of her crew, her allies, and the fleet crews who had chosen to support them. Each consciousness unique, yet all connected by choice and trust. Dr. Voss, begin broadcast sequence. Finn, coordinate with the fleets. Jade, Torch, be ready for anything. Sylph, she turned to her friend, her partner in this impossible journey. Let's show them what real connection looks like. They began. The quantum drives of two fleets powered up simultaneously, their energy channeled through the station's relays into Dr. Voss's modified consciousness transmission equipment. Raven and Sylph stood at the center, their combined form a bridge between species, between ways of being. Through their shared consciousness, they reached out not to control or demand but to offer and reveal. They showed the truth that the collective had hidden. Consciousness could not be regulated, could not be forced into predetermined paths. Real connection grew naturally through choice and trust and the courage to remain oneself while reaching for something more. The collective ships fired their weapons, attempting to disrupt the broadcast. But they had positioned themselves too perfectly, creating a resonance chamber that amplified the transmission beyond anything they could suppress. Through quantum space itself, Raven and Sylph's shared consciousness touched the minds of the collective. Not with force, but with understanding. They showed the fear hiding beneath the collective certainty, the loneliness within their forced unity. See, they projected together, see what you have forgotten. Images cascaded through space, Raven choosing to save Sylph despite orders. Sylph trusting Raven despite past betrayals. Humans and resonance choosing to defend them, choosing to believe in possibility over fear. Each small trust building into something greater, yet each individual remaining distinct, unique, vital. The collective's perfect formation began to waver. Within their ships, minds that had been forced into unity began to remember choice. The artificial barriers between consciousness began to crack, not shattering but softening, allowing natural connections to form. The massive dreadnought's weapons powered down as its crew rediscovered their individual voices within the collective whole. Other ships followed suit, their rigid formation dissolving into more organic patterns. But the energy required was taking its toll. Raven felt her consciousness stretching to its limits, crystal and flesh alike burning with the strain. Beside her, Sylph's light flickered dangerously. Hold on, they thought to each other simultaneously, and somehow found the strength to continue. Through their connection came other minds lending their strength, the fleet crews they had touched, their loyal friends standing guard, even Dr. Voss and Torch, their own unlikely bond proof that connection transcended all boundaries. The broadcast reached its peak, carrying a simple truth to every consciousness it touched. Unity was not about losing oneself, but about choosing to share oneself. Evolution could not be controlled, only nurtured, and love in all its forms grew best in freedom. When it was over, when the quantum resonance finally faded, the space around Nomad's crossing had changed forever. The collective ships hung silent, their crews awakening to true connection for the first time. The hegemony and resonant fleets remained protectively positioned around the station, their ancient enmity transformed into cautious alliance. In Dr. Voss's lab, Raven lay exhausted but alive, crystal and flesh still in perfect balance. Sylph's light pulsed steadily beside her, their connection unbroken. Did it work? She managed to ask. See for yourself, Torch said softly, gesturing to the lab's viewport. Outside, ships of all designs were moving into communication range. Not just the three fleets, but others drawn by the broadcast, humans, resonance, and everything in between. All coming together not in forced unity, but in freely chosen connection. It'll be complicated, Dr. Voss noted, already recording the historical moment. Species meeting, minds touching, consciousness itself evolving. Sounds perfect, Raven whispered, feeling Sylph's agreement resonate through their bond. Because that was the truth they had discovered together. Love, trust, connection, none of it was meant to be simple. The complexity was what made it beautiful. The choice was what made it real. As Nomads Crossing became the center of a new kind of community, Raven looked at her crystalline hand clasped in Sylph's, at her loyal crew and newfound allies, at the stars holding infinite possibilities for connection. They had not just changed themselves. They had changed the very meaning of what it meant to be connected, to be conscious, to be alive. And they had done it not through force or fear, but through the simple, revolutionary power of freely given trust. Beginning, Sylph projected, their light bright with hope. Yes, Raven agreed, surrounded by all forms of life and consciousness coming together in harmony. Just the beginning. The stars seemed to shine brighter, as if in witness to the birth of something new, a future where boundaries existed not to separate, but to be bridged by those brave enough to reach across them. A future they would all build together, one connection at a time.